I just got in a new solar charge controller from WattCycle. It's not over there, I'm over here. This is Steve, and I am living for a living, and part of that is testing out new electronics and sharing that kind of stuff with you. In a previous video, we put 2 new solar panels on the roof and I hooked them up to a charge controller and a battery to prove that they worked. I like that charge controller, but I'm not sure if I'm ready to be married to it or not. Nothing wrong with it, but gotta play the market a little, right? I've got this WattCycle charge controller in, and I want to get it over to the bench, see what it looks like, see what some of its features are, and get it up on the wall of awesome. It's a big box, it's gonna be a big charge controller inside, and I have big hopes for this thing. Let's go take a look. Somebody at the post office sat on this one and put a hole in it, but I don't think it's gonna matter because this thing is indestructible. Let's take a look and see what we get. We get a sticky adhesive thing. This is some nice packing foam. You guys don't care about that. This is the manual. We don't read manuals. This is about as good as we're gonna get with this. I'm joking, of course. This here is actually pretty nice. This is a mounting template, and it tells you what kind of screws to use, gives you some tips for mounting, etc. And the reason why they give you this is because the mounting flange for this solar charge controller is behind the faceplate of the solar charge controller. So you can put this up and then hide all your hardware and have a nice looking, smooth, streamlined install. So that's pretty nice that they give you the template. It's pretty easy to make your own template, but that's pretty nice. Look at that. Ooh, pretty. This is a temperature probe if you're using the kind of batteries that need temperature probes. And this is a chunky boy. All right, we got this. I don't need that. I don't need that. I will need this. I don't need that. I guess I don't need this here either. Is it sealed? Oh, it's taped. Right there, taped. Untape, open, slide out. Okay, there we go. This is a pretty slick looking device. It has some big terminal holes. Let me see if I can open that up a bit and see just how big that opening is. That is the wrong size, and I don't want to strip that out. It's my screwdriver that's the wrong size. It's not the screw that's the problem. This kind of thing is okay if you are very careful. This is not a binary trigger. This is a pressure sensitive trigger, so I can go really slow or I can go really fast. So it is up to the operator to not strip out the screws. That's like the worst sound on a job site, is all the screw stripping going on. There we go. Okay, now we can go back to normal size screws and take a look at that opening. Yeah, that is a full size. The opening for your wire is the full size of that square plastic cutout. That is awesome. I dig that. And the reason why is because I have 400 watts of solar, and so I'm running 8-gauge wire, and 8-gauge wire does not fit in the terminals of my existing solar charge controller well. So this is gonna do me real good. I don't know why I'm tightening these back down. It's OCD. They were factory tight, and so this screwdriver here, I think it's still a number 2. Yeah, this number 2 here wasn't wide enough because like there's just not enough material there to really break them free. And so this number 2 here worked fine. We got to get this thing mounted up, and then we've got to get it plugged in, and we get to check it out. So a couple of things: 100 volts on the solar panels. My solar system is 400 watts, and at 400 watts, that is still 24-ish volts. So this will be fine as underneath of that. Max PV power, 1200 watts at 24 volts or 600 watts at 12 volts. So we are good to go on that end. You do not want to put more solar power into this thing than it can handle. Hopefully the best that can happen is it will give you an error that says overvolt or something like that. The worst that can happen is you fry this device, and that's on you because you didn't read the label on the front. Max charge current is 40 amps, which is what it is going to send to the battery. So this is a 30 amp rated controller, but it might surge up to 40 here and there. But what it's telling you is it's not going to provide you any more than 40, and do not try to pull any more than 40 out of it. This really has to do with pushing, so it's probably okay. Max load current, that is this part here. This is where you would connect up a 12 volt load to this device, and usually when these kinds of things have these 12 volt load connectors on them, they also include timers and things. So we'll take a look for that when we get farther into the system. But like I said, I gotta go get this thing mounted up. No more than 20 amps out of here. Usually these are low rated, and 20 amps is actually a pretty high rating for this. So I'm pretty happy to see that. And now we've got the template mounted up on the wall of awesome. Take the template off, and it will be very easy as a result to mount this on. There's one screw in, even one-handed. I got this, 2 screws in. And now we are mounted up. I have to get solar power into this next. This is where it gets tricky. I'm gonna plug this thing in to my battery over here, but I gotta do it one-handed so I can hold the camera and show you what's going on with the other hand. Ready, and go. There's no solar panel plugged into this. We're just looking at battery power and showing the blinking lights on the come-uppins. I like that. We do have the negative terminal plugged in. I wanted to get that out of the way before I show you plugging in the positive terminal. But so far, so good. I'm liking it. Settings. That's just the arrow. No amp draw. 15 amp load. No error message. Or if E001 means no solar panels connected, which is also true. 23 degrees Celsius in here. 0 watt hours, true, because the panels aren't connected. 0 amps, true. 88% charged on the battery, is that true? We'll have to find out. 87% charged. 12.9 volts. That's probably why it's thinking that it's low on charge, which is good. Settings, this is not a gel cell. I like that it starts up on the easy one. So it is 12 volts. Boost up to 14.2. I don't know if it's saying that the boost is 14.2 or the charge voltage is 14.2. 12.6. And then the low voltage is 11.11. And it's lithium iron. Okay, so I'm happy with all of that. Long press to get it back out. And now we will plug in the positive wire. And I like to use these ferrules on the end here. First off, it keeps the wire nice and dressed. And second, it also means when I go to shove this in, there won't be any splayed out wires crisscrossing and short-circuiting or going in different places, and all of my power is going to get transferred. See if I can do this with the camera right there. All right, we've opened that up. I'm watching the hole to guide in the thing. My next door neighbor has just gotten home. And it's on the bottom upside down, so I can't actually see it. All right, I got to move the camera. All right, now I got it in there. All right, she's in there good. She's in there good. Excellent. Safety first, folks. Okay, now that we are all wired in, this is the solar panels on the roof. This is the battery connection over here to the Red Audio 140 amp hour battery. Let's take a look at some of the front panel stuff. We've already gone through the settings. What I want to go through next is what we get to see up here. Right now it's showing me 14.2 volts, and it is thinking that it is giving power to the battery, but I know this battery's full. Let's continue. Push that button once. It does tell me the battery's full. Push that button again. From the solar to the battery, there are 0 amps. You can't put any amps into a full battery, so that is accurate. There are 0 watt hours, again, accurate. 24 degrees Celsius, I'll buy that. I gotta switch that over to Fahrenheit. E001, we'll take a look at what that error message is, if anything. And we have the load. These two terminals down here are set to 15, but there's no load there, so it's just telling me what the setting is. 0 amps being drawn from the battery to the load. 0 watt hours from the battery to the load, that's also correct. And then the solar panels are reporting 37.8 volts. So there's some interesting things going on there. So my panels are 24 volt panels, and they do 34 point something at VOC, open circuit. Because the battery is full, these are at open circuit levels, and this thing is just reporting what the voltage is. And it's also kind of absorbing it and turning it into heat and getting rid of it. And that's what your charge controller does. My battery is full, my panels are getting good direct sunlight, putting out as much as they can put out in voltage terms, and here we are. So what I need to do is get a load on this battery so that we can drain the battery a bit, which would then cause the solar panel to feed into the charge controller, which would then cause the charge controller to feed into the battery. This manual here talks about a couple of things. So I'm looking at the lights on the charge controller, and we have a slow flash on the PV, photovoltaic array LED, and that means that we are in equalize boost float charge mode, which means the battery's full. We have a steady on for the battery light. That means the battery is on. We have no load light. which means the load is off. We have no fault light, which means there are no errors. And then, like I was saying, that E00 you can see at the top of the page there says no error, no action needed, which is what I thought that meant. But there are a couple of other error message that you can look at here. So we've got a battery over discharge, battery over voltage, load short circuit, load overload, overheating, environmental over temperature, solar over voltage, solar reverse polarity, battery reverse polarity. So it's nice that it has reverse polarity protection in case you plug it in backwards. You'd need to have at least one power source. So your solar would need to be plugged in right and your battery plugged in wrong in order for it to tell you, or your solar plugged in wrong and your battery plugged in right in order for it to tell you. So this is where it gets really interesting. I love having this wall of awesome here as it continues to evolve and I add more things to it. I've got some parts in order to get this thing mounted to the wall. This is my battery load device and it's plugged in to the battery at 14.1 volts and it's currently drawing 0 amps, which is really nice. This here is also showing 14 point something, and you'll see that they move a little bit as the sun moves and the battery moves and everything moves. This is all pretty fluid. And sometimes they even get really close to agreeing, but they're both moving pretty fast. No worries, 14.1, 14.2, that's all within spec, so I'm happy to see that. What I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna take this thing and I'm gonna turn this up to 5 amps, which is gonna start it's gonna start that fan spinning, because this thing is taking electricity from the battery and turning it into heat. And then we're at 520, 440. Let's turn this up a little more, 450, 506. All right, we're at 5 even. Okay, and things just got a little happier and we got to 5.01. And they got a little happier. Come on, stop it. All right, 5 amps even, 13.2 volts. We're showing 13.5 up here. And if we cycle through, 100% charge on the battery, 3.8 amps, 4 amps coming in from the solar panels through the charge controller to the battery, and then back out here. So we are putting in almost as much as we are taking out of the battery. And this is actually really good. Let me show you the weather conditions outside to give you an idea what we're looking at. I'd say we're doing really good on sun right now. The solar panels are mounted flat on the roof of the RV, and the sky is a little tiny bit overcast. I think drawing 5 and putting 4 back is fantastic. So there we go, 5.06, 4.4. Let's draw some more. I've got a 10 amp fuse on here, so I can't hit 10 amps until I change fuses. But I'm gonna get real close. I'm gonna do 9. There we go. 9 amps draw out of the battery and 4.5 amps going in to replace it. This thing's working great. We just lost some cloud cover as the wind moved in. We're at 10.8 amps. Nice. I also switched that down to 5 amps and rearranged some stuff a little bit because I can. I love having this wall up here. I'm actually fairly impressed. Super easy to set up. Plug in the battery, plug in the solar panel, configure it for the proper type of battery, and you are pretty much good to go. It does have the label on the front of it that will tell you what your max solar input voltage and wattage is, which is a good way to make it very easy for you to not overvolt or overwatt this device. So there's a little bit of built-in safety precautions there. It does have the load feature, but I don't really see any way to tell it to turn on or turn off like some of the other ones do. So not really a fault, just not a feature. It just doesn't exist. The mounting of the device is pretty good, pretty easy for a home stationary user. For an RV user, I'm not 100% sure. I had to get in there kind of sideways with a special tool because you can see that there's this little flange here that sticks out in front to make it look all pretty, which is nice, but it does make it hard to get a screwdriver in there and get those screws torqued down. So maybe instead of using screws, use some bolts or some, what do they call them, lag screws in order to secure this thing to the wall so you can get a little wrench in there and tighten them down nice and tight if you are in a mobile situation like me. I'm a little teeny tiny bit worried, not much, just a little teeny tiny bit worried about having this thing on the road and hitting a bump and having it come off while I am driving. Probably not an issue for a lot of users, or you can lay it down instead of standing it upright. With it stood upright in this position, the air fins behind it do allow for the cooling convection action to happen, it'll cool just fine unless you've got, you know, the black solar charge controller sitting out on top of asphalt in front of the hot sun. Nobody does that because this thing ain't waterproof anyway. It is pretty cool that I was able to pull almost 5 amps out on overcast, and then when the sun moved away, we got over 11 amps coming out of those solar panels on the roof. Again, they are mounted flat, and today is a rainy day, which is very weird for Arizona. I'm in Globe, Arizona right now, and we are trekking north. There is a link in the description down below for more information on this solar charge controller. I have a couple others to review, and I'm going to continue to build out this wall of awesome here. The next thing I need is an inverter, and then I need to drill holes in the floor, because when we put the solar panels on the roof, they just come here and they go to that battery that I showed you sitting behind me. They don't go down to the tongue batteries yet. So we're going to be doing that in a future video too. I just need to get big wires, and I'm not set up for that yet. I got to get the big wires, and I got to get the big crimp-on ends, which I think I'm going to get the hammer crimper because I don't have a whole lot of room and it takes up less space, and I have a hammer. So be sure you're subscribed for when that comes out, because that's going to be fun. And this wall is going to get a whole lot bigger. But the very next video is going to be on an inverter, and I'm going to plug in the RV from the wire in the back of the RV through the hole that I put in for my antennas in the front side, and run an extension cord up here, and then I'm going to try and run the microwave off of it. That'll be interesting. In the meantime, there's a video right over here I think you'll enjoy next. I'll see you over there.